Today's video is about dating in America, more specifically, what America taught me about dating as an immigrant Black woman. And I just want to say this up front. This is not a bash Haitian men video. This is not a bash American men video. And this is definitely not a pick me video. This is an immigrant woman telling the truth about what she had to unlearn so that other immigrant women don't waste years trying to call suffering love. Because if you made it out of your home country, you built a life here and you're trying to build the right relationship, I know that you do not need more dating advice. You just need clarity. And I know also that immigrant women, they don't just date for chemistry. We date for peace, stability, and we date also for alignment. So here's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to walk you through the biggest lessons that I learned, starting with what I noticed was normalized in Haitian culture when I was growing up and what I had to unlearn when I came to the United States. And I'm going to say this in a very encouraging way because I want immigrant women watching this to feel empowered, not discouraged. And I want you to feel like, okay, I'm not crazy. I'm not difficult. I am not asking for too much. I just need to be honest about what I'm willing and not willing to accept. Because if you are going to be the woman who breaks generational cycles, you need language for what you're doing because you're not too much. I feel that we're just done carrying what our mothers had to carry. Let's start with what I had to unlearn. The number one thing I realized is that I had to do a lot of unlearning from what was normalized in my Haitian culture, especially what Haitian women were taught to tolerate. I grew up watching Haitian women in my life tolerate things that, quite frankly, I questioned at a very young age. And I'm going to speak plainly here. When I was growing up, it wasn't rare at all to see households where the husband had children outside the marriage or girlfriends on the side, and everybody knew. And the way that it was framed, I think that it was disturbing because it was almost like, oh, you're lucky if you're the main girlfriend. You're lucky if you're the wife. As long as the other woman doesn't disrespect you publicly, it's fine. As long as your household is taken care of, oh, you're good. And I remember thinking even as a child, how can you call this love? How can you call suffering love? How can you call staying the proof of commitment when the whole relationship is heartbreak? I know that being chosen is not the same as being loved because I saw smart, beautiful women tolerating pain just to get the ring, like the ring was the prize, even if the marriage was misery. And that shaped my standards very early on because I remember thinking I would rather be single than live like that. And it wasn't because I hated men, but because I hated the idea that a woman's dignity was even negotiable. The second thing that I had to unlearn was colorism because colorism in Haiti is deep. When I was growing up, dark skinned women like me, we were not considered the standard of beauty. Mixed women were, lighter skin was, long hair was. And I'm not saying this to complain. I'm saying this because it affects how you show up in relationships. Because if you grow up being told directly or indirectly that you're not the pretty one, you start to internalize that your value has to come from being useful. So I was smart, I was capable, but I wasn't seen as beautiful. And I remember people literally saying, "Oh, Webley, she's not pretty, but she's smart." Listen, these statements, they leave a mark because then you start thinking, okay, I cannot lead with beauty, so I am going to have to lead with performance. And immigrant women already do this. We already lead with performance. We already perform competence to survive. So imagine that you are stacking that on top of dating. But here's the boundary that I am very proud of. Even with all that pressure, I never crossed the line of bleaching my skin. And I know that women in my family encouraged me to bleach my skin. But I remember looking at Grace Jones and watching her as a kid and thinking, no, I am not doing that. She's dark, she's beautiful, and she's not apologizing. So do not hurt your body just to make other people comfortable with your beauty. And that matters because when you don't heal the colorism wound, you might pick a partner that ends up reinforcing it. And you might pick people who love you in private, but they won't honor you in public. Or you might pick people who compliment you like you are some kind of exception. Oh, you're pretty for dot, dot, dot. No, we don't do that. We don't. So, the third lesson that I had to learn was that the language barrier wasn't English, it was context. Now, let's talk about something that people don't mention a lot, language. And I don't just mean, do you speak English? I mean context. Because when I started dating in America, I realized that even when I speak English, there were expressions, especially when I dated African American men, that I just did not understand. And when I asked what something meant, I would get that look like, wait, how do you not know what that means? But the truth is, I learned English. I wasn't born inside every cultural layer of American English. And you also have small things like I used to mix this and that. So imagine trying to communicate something emotional and your language is doing a lot of gymnastics. So I feel that sometimes people aren't misunderstanding you because you are unclear. I think they're misunderstanding you because they are translating your words through their own context and you're translating theirs through your own context. So the language barrier wasn't grammar, it was meaning. And this is why some Haitian women in America, they prefer dating Haitian men because it's easier to be understood. But for me, I'll be honest, my history with colorism, it made me very hesitant. And I did not want to relive in America the same smart but not pretty story that I left behind. Okay. All right. So, lesson number 4 was that dating Haitian men in the United States showed me a lot about what I refuse to carry. Now, this part is important, and I am going to say it carefully. I did date Haitian men in the United States. And I am in no way generalizing because not all Haitian men are the same, but I can only talk about my experience. And I remember there was this one relationship I had that was extremely labor intensive because everything in the relationship revolved around that man. It revolved around his needs, his ego, his image. And there was this obsession with things that would signal status, like cars. And I remember thinking, wait a minute, I grew up around this. I grew up around the version of masculinity that takes up all the oxygen in the room. And I know that I wasn't willing to build my future here carrying that same thing, especially not in America where I already had to work hard to build stability. So I did not leave my country to recreate the same pain in a different zip code. That was not going to happen. And lesson number 5 is that it was a culture shock. And that was it was another major culture shock for me dating in America because almost every man I met had a child from a previous relationship. And for some women, that's normal. But for me, coming from my context, um, it was very shocking at first because in Haiti, in dating, it wasn't that common to meet men with children, at least not in the same way. And what made it hard for me is this: I tried dating someone with children, and it was labor intensive because a lot of the relationship it is centered around child support money and conflict. And I decided after that, I am not doing this again. Not because I am judging anybody, but because by that time I knew myself and I also knew what drains me. And I it was starting to be clear for me what kind of life that I want. So boundaries, in this sense, it's not cruelty, it's just clarity. Because dating taught me to decide, okay, what is an absolutely no for me? What am I willing to work with? And what will absolutely drain me? And this is a powerful moment for any immigrant woman because the first time you realize, hey, I am allowed to choose. Um, it's liberating, okay? That was very liberating for me. So lesson number 6, growing up in Haiti, there was so much judgment around how a woman should behave. Men, they could do whatever they wanted, and society would just shrug and say, oh, that's what men do, or he's a man. But if a woman did the same thing, she would be labeled promiscuous, unworthy, disrespectful, loose, whatever they want to put on a woman. And women were expected to be modest. We were expected to be conservative and responsible, even for men's behavior, and responsible even when we do not attract some unwanted attention. And I'm saying this because when you come in America and you're dating, you face a decision. How much of your culture do you want to hold on to? Because culture is not just food or music, culture is also rules. And rules, they can be about a woman's freedom, they can be about a man's freedom, they can be about marriage, they can be about obedience, they can be about silence. And I realized very early that I was leaning more towards what my culture called a liberal woman. Not liberal like in politics. It was liberal like a woman has autonomy over her body. Liberal like a woman can leave a relationship if she's unhappy. Liberal like a woman is not your private property. So that made me different. And it also made me willing to be single if necessary because I would rather be alone than be owned. All right. Lesson number 7 is chivalry was normal for me. So the 50-50 dating felt like math here. Now let's talk about that part because it really shocked me in America. Chivalry. In Haiti, even with all the problems, there is chivalry. Doors, men hold the doors for you. Chairs are pulled. Men were expected to be able to afford dating. And some men, some Haitian men, they take pride in being providers. So when I started dating here, I remember being on a date and the bill comes and he expects me to pay half. I'm not even going to lie to you. That was mind boggling because in my mind, if you asked me out, why are we splitting the bill? This created a lot of mental math for me because if dating feels like accounting, I'm sorry, something is off because I wasn't used to the constant negotiation around money. And I also started noticing that in America, people moved in together quickly. You know, they split the bills, they even buy houses together without even being married. So culturally for me, that was a big no. Because in my culture, you're moving together when there's a ring, when there's commitment. And even though my own views on marriage evolved over the years. But there's one thing that stayed with me. I'm not taking on financial responsibility for a boyfriend, and I'm not sharing assets without clarity because what if things don't work out? Now, I'm not just dealing with a heartbreak, I'm also dealing with paperwork. So, as an immigrant woman, I don't do love that's going to destroy my stability. And you shouldn't either. You shouldn't. Okay. I also went through a season, um, I think in my late 20s, that made everything clearer. At a certain point, I realized that I had to stop dating from confusion. So I went through this self discovery season. I read, I reflected, and I got honest about what I like and what I didn't like. And I went single for a couple of years. I mean, when I say single, single, all I did was focus on my education and my growth. And that wasn't loneliness at all. I felt that it was, in a way, training and a lot of peace of mind because if you don't know yourself, you're going to keep choosing people based on pressure. And sometimes the pressure comes from society, it comes from family, it comes from culture, and it can also come from fear. It can also come from I'm getting older because I remember as I was approaching my 30s, it was in the back of my mind, that kind of I'm getting older pressure. But when you choose yourself first, your standard they stop being negotiable. So I did not become picky, I became clear. And this is where I want immigrant women to feel encouraged because you can absolutely take your time. You don't have to rush into a relationship just to prove that, hey, everybody, I made it. Hey, mama, I made it, you know? And the most aspirational immigrant woman is not the one who just succeeds publicly. It's the one who protects also her peace privately. So now this is where things shifted a little for me because when I stopped trying to force like familiarity, I started seeing character more clearly. And I also learned something very important. Sometimes what you call normal, it can be just what you're used to. And what you call different, it it is what might actually heal you or work for you. So when I dated outside of my culture, I experienced care in a way that did not feel like a power struggle. And the key difference it was that it was care, not control. It was care without control, not care that comes with debt, not care that comes with a bunch of rules of how a woman is supposed to be in a relationship. It was care that comes with respect. And not every man who provide is controlling, but every controlling man will call it providing. One of the humbling parts of this journey, it was realizing that I had to learn how to receive. Immigrant women, we are used to handling everything, and we also don't want to be a burden. We don't want to come across as we need something. So when someone shows up gently and consistently, it can feel suspicious to us. So I learned that receiving is not weakness. Receiving is trust. Receiving is just letting a good thing be a good thing, you know? And I wasn't just independent. I realized that I was also very guarded. And another thing that changed my standards permanently was how I started seeing communication, because I do not believe that love should sound like a war. I don't believe that disagreements they need to become something, some form of disrespect. And I also learned to value partners who ask questions instead of assuming, especially with language and cultural context, because as an immigrant, you can say the right words and still be misunderstood. So, in that case, patience was love, curiosity was love, and clarifying was also love. If someone loves you, they'll try to understand you without mocking you. So, here's what I want to say to immigrant women watching this, especially those who feel torn between culture and personal freedom. You are allowed to build a new standard. You are allowed to keep the parts of your culture that nourish you. And you can release the parts that require you to suffer and call it love, because you are not betraying your culture by refusing pain. In fact, you are honoring yourself. And if you are the one who made it out, built your life, educated yourself, and worked hard, please do not bring your future into a relationship that will ask you to shrink yourself. Because love should not be a punishment. Love should not be like a second job. Love should not feel like math. Love should not feel like you're constantly negotiating your dignity. Because I did not leave everything behind just to recreate the same suffering in a new country, speaking a new language too. Okay. And the last thing, I want you to be open. You know, when I say open, not desperate, not careless, but open. Open enough to believe that healthy love does exist. Yes, even in the United States. And open enough to believe that you don't have to tolerate what your mothers tolerated. Because I'm not blaming our mothers, they were victims of their time. Be open enough to choose a partner based on character, not just familiarity, because you can succeed in America and still have love. You can be ambitious and still be soft. You can definitely be independent and still be supported by your partner. And if nobody told you this before, I'm going to be the first one to tell you that today. You deserve love that does not cost you your peace. And with that, my name is Webley. I am on this consistency journey to post on YouTube for 100 days. If you are in this consistency journey with me, thank you for watching. If this is your first time watching me, subscribe, and I will be back tomorrow for day 46. Bye.